he came to measure weakness. Instead, the data began measuring him. A Korean Grandmaster, trained to control bodies with precision, agreed to let his own structure be tested by something he did not fully respect. Ancient Filipino joint locking techniques, once dismissed as crude, were about to be translated into numbers. And in a quiet laboratory in the Philippines, belief itself will be placed under pressure. The experiment was simple in design, but heavy in implication. Sensors would track torque, pressure, and skeletal deviation in real time. Every movement would be recorded, quantified, stripped of myth. The goal was not to prove tradition right or wrong, but to see whether these techniques could survive scientific scrutiny. The Grandmaster agreed, confident that structure, discipline, and modern systems will hold firm. He introduced himself with calm authority. Years of Hapkido had shaped not just his technique, but his worldview. Precision mattered. Efficiency mattered. Systems refined through generations of controlled evolution mattered. In contrast, Filipino grappling, particularly its lesser-known joint manipulation systems, appeared scattered. Adaptive, yes, but unstructured. That was his assumption. And today, assumptions would meet resistance not from force, but from something quieter. Across from him stood a Filipino practitioner. No dramatic posture, no formal display, just stillness. The kind of stillness that does not demand attention, but holds it. He did not argue. He did not defend the tradition with words. Instead, he waited, because in systems shaped by survival, explanations come after contact. And today, contact would be translated into something neither man could ignore. Data. The sensors were applied methodically. Wrists, elbows, shoulders, spine, hips. Every joint mapped. Every movement trackable. A digital skeleton appeared on the screen, mirroring the Grandmaster's posture in real time. Baseline readings confirmed what everyone already knew. His body was conditioned, stable, resistant. A structure built to withstand manipulation. If the Filipino techniques worked, they would have to bypass all of that. The instructions were clear. No resistance at first, just observation. The Filipino practitioner stepped forward, closing the distance without urgency. No sudden movement, no aggressive intent, just a hand, lightly connecting to the wrist. On the monitor, nothing dramatic appeared. A small shift, a minor deviation. But the technician leaned closer, because even in that small movement, something unusual had already begun. The wrist rotated slightly, but not in isolation. The elbow followed. Then the shoulder adjusted, almost involuntarily. Within seconds, the Grandmaster's posture began to reorganize itself, not collapsing, not failing, but shifting in a way that bypasses control. The sensors registered increasing torque, not from force applied, but from alignment being subtly altered beyond his immediate awareness. He responded instinctively. A micro-adjustment, a counterbalance. Years of training activated without thought. But this time, the counter did not land where it should. There was no clear point of opposition, no center to reclaim. The movement did not confront his strength. It redirected it. And in that redirection, the system began to reveal something unexpected. Efficiency without resistance. The screen shifted from green to yellow, stress indicators rising, not dangerously, but noticeably. The technician spoke softly, almost surprised. The torque values were increasing faster than predicted for such minimal input. It did not match conventional expectations. There was no explosive force, no visible strain, and yet the structure was responding as if something much heavier had been applied. The Grandmaster paused emotion, not out of discomfort, but curiosity. He reset his stance, this time allowing partial resistance. The second attempt began. Again, the contact was light. Again, the movement was small. But this time, he felt it more clearly. Not pressure, not pain, but displacement. A subtle removal of control over how his body connected to itself. The sensors reacted faster now. The system recognized the pattern. Torque values spiked earlier in the sequence. Joint angles shifted beyond expected thresholds, not from force, but from sequence. Wrist to elbow, elbow to shoulder, shoulder to spine. Each link moved not independently, But as part of a chain the Grandmaster could not isolate or interrupt effectively, he increased resistance. Muscles engaged, structure reinforced. This was familiar territory for him. Strength meeting technique, control meeting control. But the Filipino practitioner did not escalate. He adjusted, reduced motion, narrowed the circle, and suddenly the data changed again. Less movement, higher torque. The system flagged it in red. A structural compromise reached faster than before. There was no impact, no aggressive push, just a position where continuation would lead to damage. The Grandmaster stopped, this time not out of instruction but necessity. He looked at the screen, then at his own arm, then back at the practitioner. Something had shifted, not in the technique, but in his understanding of what he had just experienced. They ran the sequence again, slower, every frame analyzed. The software reconstructed the movement in 3 dimensions. Heat maps showed pressure distribution. Stress lines traced through the digital skeleton. And what emerged was not randomness. It was structure, a different kind of structure, one that did not rely on overpowering joints, but on guiding them into positions where resistance amplified the effect. The Filipino practitioner explained very little. He demonstrated instead. Slight variations, different entry points. Same outcome. The system confirmed it. Regardless of angle or speed, the principles held. Minimal force, maximum structural disruption. It was not about breaking the body. It was about reorganizing it faster than it could defend itself. The Grandmaster began to test actively now, countering earlier, anticipating movement. But anticipation requires patterns, and what he faced did not follow rigid patterns. It adapted, not randomly, but responsively. Each reaction he gave became part of the technique itself. The sensors showed it clearly. His own resistance was increasing the torque applied to his structure. The technician isolated one sequence. A simple wrist redirection, no more than a few centimeters of movement. Yet the data showed torque levels comparable to mechanical clamps used in industrial testing. The room fell quiet, not because it was dramatic, but because it was precise, predictable, repeatable, the kind of result that does not rely on belief. The Grandmaster requested one more test. Full resistance within safety limits. The practitioner nodded. Contact was made. This time, the moment the sequence began, the Grandmaster reacted immediately. Strong, direct, controlled, and within seconds, the system registered it. Torque level surged faster than any previous trial. His own strength had accelerated the outcome. He disengaged quickly, not forced, not overwhelmed, but aware. The realization was not sudden. It unfolded quietly like the data itself. What he had considered unrefined was not lacking structure. It was operating on a different layer of structure, one that did not compete with strength, but bypassed it entirely. They reviewed the full dataset, side-by-side comparisons, modern joint locking sequences versus Filipino methods. The difference was not in capability, but in pathway. One approached control through progressive force, the other through immediate alignment disruption. Both effective, but one reached critical thresholds faster, with less visible effort. The Filipino practitioner remained calm throughout. No claim of superiority, no need to defend. The result spoke without interpretation. What had been preserved through generations was not accidental. It was refined, just not in the way modern systems recognized. Refined through necessity, through environments where efficiency was not optional, but required. The Grandmaster stood in front of the screen for a long time, not studying the numbers alone, but what they represented. Years of training had taught him to recognize truth in movement. And here, that truth had been translated into something measurable, something undeniable, not replacing a system, but expanding it. He turned to practitioner. There was no formal gesture, no ceremony, just acknowledgement, the kind that does not need words to carry weight. But he spoke anyway, quietly, carefully, not as a concession, but as recognition of something he had not fully seen before. These techniques are not unrefined, he said. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of everything that had just been measured, everything that had just been felt. They are efficient in a way that is difficult to counter. It was not praise. It was accuracy. The room did not react. The technicians continued logging data. The system powered down gradually. The digital skeleton faded from the screen, but something remained. Not in the equipment, not in the numbers, but in the understanding that had just shifted between two systems that had never truly been compared like this before. Because what had been tested was not just technique. It was perspective, the assumption that refinement only comes through formal structure, the belief that precision must look a certain way, and the idea that anything outside that framework is incomplete. The data had not argued. It had simply shown another form of completion. In the Philippines, systems like this were never designed for laboratories. They were shaped in uncertainty, in environments where control had to be immediate, where hesitation had consequences. And over time, those conditions produced something that did not need explanation, only application. Science did not create that efficiency. It revealed it, translated it, allowed it to be seen in a language the modern world could understand. Numbers, angles, torque. But behind those numbers was something older, something that had already been proven, long before it was measured. The Grandmaster removed the sensors slowly, not as someone who had lost, but as someone who had learned. There was no conflict left in the room, only clarity. Two systems no longer in opposition, but in conversation, not competing, not replacing, just existing now, with a deeper understanding between them. And in that quiet conclusion, the outcome became clear. Filipino hands had not needed validation, but when science finally caught up, it confirmed what had always been there. Not louder, not stronger, but precise in a way that leaves no room for resistance. And sometimes the most powerful systems are the ones that never needed to prove themselves until someone decided to measure them.